my background's in JavaScript development, and probably like most of you here, you have a long list of things that you want to learn next. And for quite a long time, one of those things was Arduino, and I'm really happy that Gordon went through what Arduinos are, so that was great. I've seen some really good things made with Arduino. That includes, I've seen a pizza oven controlled by an Arduino, I've seen musical instruments, I've seen pieces of art. There's so much you can do by adding electronic components to this board. Because it's an open source prototyping system, it has the board, it has an IDE you can use, and it has a language that's based on C and C++ functions. But what really got me excited as a JavaScript developer is you can create physical interfaces for digital applications. So I was introduced to this when I worked on a project for Somerset House. So they had an exhibition called Big Bang Data. And the person who I was working with decided they wanted to do something on data models, explain to people what data models are. So we created a data model for London of the future. So people could come in, answer some multiple choice questions. Things like, if you had a spare plot of land, would you use it for a playground? What would you want to use it for? And at the end of 16 questions, you were told how good a mayor of London you were, if you'd managed to house people, if you'd managed to, the economy's doing well. And he decided he wanted to build this. We built it in React, so the system itself is in React. It's on a Chrome browser that people interacted with. The data model was built in Python, and there was a Node.js interface between the two. But he was quite fascinated by science fiction and sort of control rooms of the future. So he wanted it to have a physical interface where someone could stand in front of it and press on buttons and move sliders, and that's how you interacted with the game. And to do this, he used Arduinos. So underneath all these buttons and everything, there are Arduinos. And when we were building it at work, he actually just used a breadboard with some buttons on and a knob on, and there's an Arduino on the back, so you could just plug that into your computer and you could run the game just locally on your computer. And I found that fascinating because you could see people when they're at Somerset House interacting with it, and they really enjoyed it. And this actually doesn't use an Arduino, it uses another board called a Photon. And this was a colleague at work made this, and it's using an API of electricity use. So the idea is that it's green when there's low electricity use, so it's a good time for you to power things, to get your washing done, to charge your laptop. But as it goes to orange, it means that electricity use in the country is getting higher and they're about to turn on the coal-powered plants. And then red means, that's what's happening. And I really like this again because it's just using a web API, and that's going to the Photon, and that's powering a light, just to tell you. So it's very simple, but it can tell you a lot. And this is actually a project that I'm hoping to get finished in the next month. It was another colleague at work designed what are called cultural probes. So in user research, they want people to answer questions in a slightly different way. So she created these probes. So this one is actually a joy rattle. So if you're happy, you rattle it far harder and you can shake it harder, and that will be picked up. So again, if you put something like an Arduino inside there, it could measure the amount someone's shaking it. So as a JavaScript developer, I was completely new to electronics. I hadn't done it before. So with a friend, we bought an Arduino kit, and that has the Uno board in it. It has a whole series of components of the LEDs, buzzers, motors, and it has a book of projects. So I took a week off work, and we just spent the time learning Arduino. And by the end, I had a pretty good idea of how basic electronic circuits worked. So how does it work? It's nice, actually, Gordon again went through USB. So there are a number of different ways you can access it, but one way is using USB and using the serial port. So for that, you use a Node.js server, you use the front end, whatever you want to use, and then you use the Arduino IDE to write the code. So a simple example would be a button. If you've got a button, you can press it, it's either pressed or it's not pressed. And you can pick up on your web screen if someone's pressed that button or not. So you can use it for interactions, you can ask people questions. And this is very simple. It's just a button connected to a pin on my Arduino, and it's just creating a circuit. So say there is an Arduino IDE, and that they create programs on it. They're called sketches. That's the name of their programs. And if you open a new sketch, the first thing you get is you get two functions for you already. You get a setup and you get a loop function. So the setup is everything that's when you turn it on, what you want it to do. The loop will just keep looping through. And so I just created a variable that was called switch button, which has the pin number that the button is attached to on the Arduino. And then in the loop, you can just read the state of that pin number. So if the button is pressed, the state is high, and if it's not, the state is low. And then it's really easy just to do an if statement. So if it's high, you use serial print, and if it's not, its serial print is 0. And in the setup, you use serial begin because you want to let it know the rate that you'll be sending the data through the serial port. And then you can create a Node.js server. So this one I just did really quickly with Express. And you use the serial port library. And you can see on line 10, you can then add your serial port that your Arduino is connected to into the server. So you can find that out on the Arduino Ide. It's very easy to find the port. Or you can just do it in a terminal and find out which port it's accessing. And then just use the two functions. Serial port on, it's open. You know your serial port's open, get quick console log out. And then you can also do serial port data, and that means you can do a function that returns the data that you can console log. But then, of course, you can use WebSockets. So WebSockets are a really easy way of getting that data to your front end so you can actually start to show it. And at line 20, it's just I used EJS to create as the view engine, and then created a route to the index. So that means when I'm using socket I/O, I can just, with the serial port, when I get the data this time, I can just do a socket emit of the data, and that'll send to the front end. And then whatever you want to do in the front end, you can do, whether you want it to sort of light something up or change something. It's up to you, you're getting that data through. But you can also go the other way. So if you have a web page, you can create clickable elements on it that will send data back to your Arduino. And that could be text, or it could just be clicks. You can also attach it to any web API. So one that I did was a web API for earthquake data. So I'd get the earthquake data through, and then I could send it to the Arduino and just display it on a screen. So with this one, I just had an LED attached to my Arduino that would light up every time you clicked on the red square on a web browser. So the web page itself, this sort of simplest you could do. I've just created a div that I've made a red color, and then selected it by its ID so I can add an event listener to it. And then with that event listener, I'm adding, when it clicks, it toggles a class on and off, and I'm storing that toggle, whether it's true or false, and doing a emit with the ID of LED of that value. So that data then goes back to the Node.js server, and I'm using the socket on when it receives the ID of LED, and I'm using serial port write this time, so the data is being written back through the serial port back to the Arduino. The Arduino doesn't know when the data finishes, though. It sort of just reads it as a stream of bits. It doesn't know when it ends. So you give it a terminating character, so you can say that's the point. So you can check on your Arduino code, that's the point when that's one piece of data. So that means if you go back to you write a sketch, and this one, you can just do, there's a serial available function. And with that, it's just seeing, is there any serial data coming through that I need to read? And then you create a variable that just reads in characters, and then it checks if that character is not equal to t. And if it's not equal to t, then you just have your input string that you just keep adding the characters to. And when it is equal to t, you can go, okay, I've got all the data I need. Now do a digital write of high if I want to turn the light on, or low if I don't. So the nice thing about it is whatever sort of JavaScript libraries you use, you can connect Arduinos to them. So this was an example I did in 3JS. If I go to the game. So with the Arduino, I'm not sure if everyone can see this, but there's just a little joystick attached to the Arduino. And the game is as simple as you can get. It's a game where a ball's going to drop onto a paddle, and you need to catch the ball. But because you all can also click on the joystick, the paddle has to be the same color of the ball to get a point. So I'm normally quite bad at this game. Let's see what happens. So that's no point. Comes through. It might be the... There it goes. And I've missed it, and I've missed another one. And can I get it? Oh, so close. There, I should be able to get that one. Yeah! So, what's the nice thing about it is it just gives you the freedom to create interfaces that you hadn't really thought about. You can, creating things like this. It is fun. And then this is a very simple looking thing, but you could make it more complex, and you could add it into things like React. So there are other boards as well. So there's an Arduino called the MKR1000, which is a Wi-Fi enabled Arduino, and you can put a server on it that you can attach to a node server and just send data back and forwards. And as Gordon mentioned, there are quite a lot of other boards. And I'd say what I really like about this, it's a really great community. And as a JavaScript developer, I came in literally, I knew nothing about electronics. I'd done physics when I was 15 at school, and that was about the end of it. And it's such a welcoming community. So there's lots of meetup groups, there's hack spaces you can go to, there's fab labs. And as a developer, I think it is just fun finding new ways that you can sort of connect with your audiences and have them respond to what you've made. So I think I'm a couple of minutes short, but that is the end of my talk. So thank you, and say I'm around as well, so get in touch. And